Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. Now, my lips are moving other than with the sound. It's because I had a mic failure. It's uh, September 9th. We're going to be talking about summer pruning fruit trees. Now, this is an apple tree that uh, I had propagated from a Honeycrisp that I had, if you had followed back earlier in my videos. And I had it had grown about a year, and I realized that one of them had taken hold there, and so I took and transplanted it over here. Now I want to keep this tree short, but also I want it to be able to support the fruit. As you can see, if fruit was to set on the end of the limbs, it would pull it down and possibly break them. Uh, so what I'm going to do is we're going to talk about uh, pruning these, and we're going to start taking it off. I want to keep it, like I say, kind of short. Normally, they say don't take off more than a third. Uh, Make sure you get any suckers. Now, I prune those all times of the year. Now, these are not from rootstock, being it's on its own rootstock, but you don't want suckers because they'll draw from the tree, and then you'll end up with a problem uh, that you're possibly the sucker will outgrow the tree, and the tree original tree will die. So make sure you take those off. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, we're going to cut this back, and we're going to cut a lot of the limbs that come off the side uh, that would normally bear the fruit. Now, as you see right now, I'm setting my height that I want, so I'm cutting off a lot of the upper branches. But what we're going to do is uh, the branches on the spur branches on the side, we're just going to measure out like 3 leaves, and then we're going to cut the end off of them. Now I'm showing there, as far as when you cut the top, cut it diagonally so that the water won't set on it. You don't want to end up with some kind of rot or something. And cut close to a leaf that's pointing the direction that you would want a limb to go whenever it comes out. Uh, because that'll ensure it's not going to grow back into the tree itself. Now, this tree did bloom this year, but it didn't set any fruit. Uh, but the reason it did go ahead and bloom, it's only a couple of years old, but it did go ahead and bloom because it was propagated from a tree that was already at the age to bloom. So when you propagate, you'll get fruit a whole lot quicker. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to take and uh, prune these limbs off. I'm going to take the spurs limbs. I'm not going to actually shape it. Uh, it's more of a high thing, and get the uh, spur branches uh, shorter, so they're not going to be hanging out all thin branches. And then when you have fruit come on next year, uh, possibly breaking the limbs. Now later on in the video, I'll show you more on the ideal limbs, and what you can do if it's not spread out enough, you can take a piece of wood and notch your little V's in the ends, and you can put it in there as a spreader, or you can actually hang weights on these limbs, which will pull them out more, because you want limbs that come more perpendicular to the trunk, and you do kind of want to open center. And a lot of this, where you can see the little spur branches come off and just shorten them. Now they're going to put fruit on the end, and a lot of times when you prune it in the summer, you'll go ahead and sometimes you'll actually get bud set, which that's not particularly what we care for, but you can cause your tree to uh, start setting fruit earlier by pruning this method. You can get fruit off a younger tree. But I'm going through and like you say, I take quite a bit off these spurs. Now that one there is kind of at a steep angle, and you want to make sure you take off any that's outgrowing the limbs that you want to set fruit on. As far as if you have a where it wires off, but your main uh, branch isn't growing as fast as the spur branch, then you may want to definitely cut that spur. You want to use that as kind of a method for the direction you want your tree to grow. But as you can see, it's not that much. Don't worry about cutting off. They say don't take more than a third. Now in this one here, I'm not taking a whole lot off. Of course, it isn't like the ones that I'll do later that have got kind of out of control uh, from not pruning. And we're pretty much almost done here. We got just a few more. A lot of people think that they've got to have more tree or a taller tree for more fruit, but you'll find out that you'll get a whole lot more fruit if you properly prune your fruit trees. And a lot of it, as far as the shape and stuff, you'll do more of that pruning in the winter. But when you winter prune, you encourage water sprouts, which are the branches that shoot straight up, and they don't normally bear fruit. They just that's just extra growth. So anyway, let's move on to the uh, other trees that I'm fixing to prune. Now we're going to, or I'm going to, I've already started a little bit. This is a different day, but I, I'm cleaning up this uh, tree a little bit. This has been way neglected. It should have been pruned quite a while back. A lot of these limbs, and you don't want to take off too much because you'll end up stressing the tree. But what I'm going to do right now is get rid of a lot of this extra growth, but we want certain style limbs, preferably for or to hold our fruit, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. But I'm just going to I've shortened some of these. I'm going to come back in here and shorten some more. I don't want this height like this. Now this is going to take this is going to take quite a bit of foliage. We're late in the season. They say don't take over a third of the overall tree, but as far as that goes, because you want it to have its leaves. But I'm trying to keep the height of this tree down, so when it grows, it does its extra growth, and then it puts on its fruit. It's going to be at a lower range. Maybe eventually I might let it get bigger, but right now I don't want to get too awful tall. So I'm just going to take this off. Now what I did with my other tree that we just got finished pruning, I just stuck these, some of these that I cut off, I just stuck them in the ground. And they rooted in, and then one rooted in. I didn't notice it until after it grew about the full year, but I took and transplanted it to where it is now. Now some of these we've got a nasty mess in here, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to build fruiting spurs, and normally 3 or 4 leaves, and take and cut it off, because the way this is, if this sets apples, which this should even start putting some buds out because we pruned this year, but if it starts setting apples on it, it's going to have good support. It's not going to be like if it sets an apple, say, way up high on a limb like this, and it's just going to hang way down. So that's That's one of the things we're looking to do. But we're going to have to there's a bunch of jumbled mess in here, and it's just going to take some time to cut it down like I want it, because, and it might possibly stress the tree, but it's not going to stress it that much. It's definitely going to be a lot better off come springtime. You can do this in the winter, but like I say, when you do this in the winter, you end up with all kinds of water sprouts coming off, and on a lot of your trees, you definitely don't want that. So, and try to, like I say, try to cut these. You can either pay attention. It's normally best to pay attention, but cut these to where the last leaf on there is pointed towards the direction you want it to grow, because it's going to send out a branch there, and you want it to at the furthest place up there, and you want it to go the direction that you want. Now I'm going to cut off this little one here. When I cut these little branches off, it stops the growth pretty much, and now it might shoot out from there, but if it starts shooting out too much from there, then you'll have to come back next time and trim that out. But like I say, most of the time, and everything around here I think is neglected that I have. Some of these trees, they just, after a period of time, I'll finally get around to taking care of them. But a lot of this off in this area is it's just really too many small branches. This is going to have to be trimmed out this winter, most likely. Now, anytime you prune something, even late in the season, pruning encourages growth. So, and if you don't do too much pruning to where you damage the tree, then you'll get a good amount of growth. And like I say, most likely it's going to go ahead and set the buds for this year. And I'm just going to continue trimming these back. A lot of these little limbs that's on the inside, I'm just cutting them back so they'll be little spurs so it can set fruit. Now, some of these will be in there, if they're in there too tight, they're not going to be able to grow an apple. And if it sets too much fruit, you just have to come back and do some pruning of the fruit. But anyway, I'm gonna continue to prune on this one. Okay, got it trimmed up. I wanted to go over a few points here. Now, this probably doesn't look as pretty as a lot would like it, and of course it's because there's a lot of extra limbs in here and stuff, and some of them will be cleaned out this winter. I'm going to have to do some spreading to separate this area, get it to where they're not going to rub, but I want to leave it. But as far as your limbs, now when you choose limbs for fruit bearing, you want limbs that come out is perpendicular to the main branch as possible, because what happens is when you have limbs, and there are some others that don't come out, but if we talk about this, let's see if I can get a one that may be a better view in here. But if we talk about where this limb comes out right here, the way this comes off, the longer this grows and the bark builds up, it puts pressure on this limb and it makes it weak. So when you choose a limb, you want to find one that's not sharp V like that. You want it to be more perpendicular. Now I've lost my mic again, so I'm going to have to narrate the rest of this. As you can see, that's, a lot of those are tight V's, but those are cut back to spur branches, so they're not going to come out a long ways. One such as this one, it's got a lot better angle. That wouldn't be a bad one to bear fruit. As far as it's going to give it a lot more strength and keep it there. Now you can see on the bottom here, these two, how they almost come out at a 90 and then they curve out. And that's kind of what you're wanting. You don't want like this one over on this other side. Now that might be fine, but there's a good chance it could break off. And being this tree is leaning towards that direction, this winter I may take off that side just to do something with it. Now I've also trimmed my other little tree here, and this has some wonderful growth on the branches. You can see how a lot of these come straight out. Now this was neglected. I mean, it grew that way on its own, but you don't want those tight branches. And like I say, I might take some of those off, but I'm not going to take all that material off in the summer. Now you see how straight that comes out, and that one, though, that's as far as if you're going to have a branch, that's the perfect style of branch you want that'll hold weight of your fruit, because it'll have good strong connection. The ones that come in the tighter V like that, now the one on the left is fairly good. The one on the right is it's not a real good one, and you need to consider this whenever you're taking and shaping your tree. And now, right now, like I say, we're pruning back spur branches for fruit spurs. And what I'm doing is more of a espalier style tree, as far as that's what I'm trying to do here in the garden too, because I don't want them to come out in my walkway. I want them to kind of go in line with the bed. So what I'll end up doing on these, I'll end up putting a few piece of wood in there to spread these out while they're still green and growing. I'll get part of that done this year. Sometimes it may take some time to get them to grow exactly like you want, and it might look like they're butchered, but like I say, if you want a lot of fruit, you don't have to have a lot of tree. You can grow a lot of fruit on a small tree, as long as it's got good root stock and a good trunk to support it in the limbs. You can put a whole lot of fruit on those limbs, and it'll actually do better for most home growers, and it'll be a whole lot easier to pick. I mean, you can get pickers and stuff to do it. Now, right there, I'm showing you that I'm going to need to pull that over. The wind has, we had some pretty good winds, and when the ground was moist, it's kind of leaned it over, and it might be because the walkway there doesn't get as much water, so maybe it doesn't have as strong roots. But what I'll do is I'll take a T-post and a tie-down strap, not the ratchet strap type, but the type that you just pull and it holds it in place. That's plenty enough tension. I've done this before on peach trees. Just I'll pull a little tension on it, and then give it a few weeks or month, and then I'll pull a little more tension, and I'll get it back to where I want it so it stands up straight. And once it does that, normally it tends to stay in that position. Now it could possibly, with the root system here, it could try to lean over again. One of my best means would be take a lot of the weight off the other side of it this winter whenever it goes dormant and I prune. But like I say, what I'm trying to do, and I'll start spreading these limbs this year. Uh, there's nothing in the way as far as I don't have to worry about the shade. The crops here, uh, the the trees are in a perfect position. I have uh, my blueberries directly behind where I'm standing, or behind the tree, the other side of the tree, and they like a little more shade. They seem to do a little bit better in our real hot summer heat, and so it'll benefit them. But I really don't want a big tree in the garden. Maybe later on, but right now I don't. So it's not going to affect a lot of that. But generally, you can see. And if you want to, thanks for watching. And if you want to see more of my videos and this type of content, well, of course, hit that subscribe, hit the bell, and select all. And give it a big thumbs up, and share this video. It definitely helps my channel. And as I always say, enjoy that gardening experience and get out there and get your hands dirty.